Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the February 11th Council meeting of the City of Belleville. I note that all of us are present. Thank you for coming today, and I'll ask the City Clerk to lead us in a moment of reflection.
May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Help us to be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chamber minds that think and hearts that feel, always having respect for others so that we may serve the people of our city in a helpful manner and for the good of all.
Thank you. You may be seated. It's my pleasure to welcome everyone and those that are watching on either Cogeco television or streaming our council meeting. The agenda for today's meeting and all of these supporting documents are available on the City of Belleville website under Agendas. The next item is a disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Colleagues, anyone have anything they wish to declare? Councillor Williams?
Yes, when it comes to the grant committee recommendations.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Stand.
I'm sorry.
Stand. Thank you.
There we go. New. For the grant committee items, I have 8A4, conflict with B, C, and F, as previously declared at our grant committee.
You have that form in your desk, I believe. If you can just fill it out and provide it to the clerk at your convenience. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll move to public meetings. There are no public meetings scheduled for today. Item number 5, reading and confirmation of minutes of the regular council meetings of January 28, 2019 and the regular in-camera minutes of January 28, 2019. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Millette, seconded by Councillor Sandison. Any discussions or anything on this? No? Then I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Colleagues, we have 2 deputations today. First deputation is Mr. David Allen, and President and Chief Executive Officer of the YMCA of Central East Ontario, will make a deputation to Council. Mr. Allen, welcome. If you can just push the button, turn the red light on, we would be pleased to hear from you today. There you go.
There we go. Perfect. That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Your Worship, and members of Belleville City Council. I stand here today on behalf of 3 local agencies, the YMCA of Central East Ontario, Volunteer Information Quinte, and Quinte Vocational Support Services, who combined have delivered more than 200 years of community services to the citizens of Belleville. Joining me this afternoon is John Masterakos, Chair of the Board of the YMCA of Central East Ontario, along with Sam Brady, past Chair of the Strong Kids Campaign and recipient of the 2018 YMCA Peace Medallion. We also have a number of staff and a few of our members with us today. I am pleased to welcome Doug Peterson, who is the Chair of the Board of Volunteer Information Quinte. Brenda Snyder, the Executive Director, is much smarter than the rest of us. Brenda has decided that she would travel down south to miss this glorious weather that we have been receiving and are about to receive. So Brenda couldn't be here with us. We also have Steve Halloran, Chair of the Board of Quinte Vocational Support Services, and Mike Vida, Executive Director of Quinte Vocational Support Services. We are some of your city's longest-standing charitable and not-for-profit organizations. In 2016, I stood before Council, the Council of the day, and requested support from the city in exploring the potential of a new YMCA. City staff have been very helpful during any and all discussions as we looked at a way that we might best serve the citizens of our community. Today, I stand before you to provide an update on where those discussions have led us and where we have come with the document that you have in front of you entitled, The Big Idea, A Belleville Centre for Life. When I spoke to the Ontario government during their consultation 2 weeks ago, the first priority that I had spoken to was around childcare. The second priority was around social infrastructure, and that's really the basis of which I would like to have that discussion today. I've lived in this city for almost 20 years. I've seen many, many changes. My wife and I have raised our 3 children here. And you know, we have a lot of friends outside the city, and I don't think they really understand everything that Belleville and the Quinte region has to offer. Whenever we drive down the 401, we look at the signs and we wonder, boy, wouldn't it be great if we could really tell people all the great things that we have? So welcome to the city of Belleville. And these are just some of the things that I think would be worthwhile mentioning. We've got the Shorelines Casino, Belleville Senators, the Empire Theatre, the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center. None of those things were in existence when we first arrived. We've got Glenmore House, the Quinte Ballet School of Canada, we have an annual waterfront festival, we have the Theatre Guild, and of course we have Loyalist College. This does not include the fact that we are really the gateway to wine country. We have some of the best beaches in Ontario, we have restaurants, hotels, golf courses, and waterfront. What I'd really like to see maybe happen is something that I like to call the Centre for Life. The Centre for Life is an innovative mall approach, if you will, providing a variety of services where everyone is welcome, where people meet new friends, where young and old, families and individuals, our most vulnerable individuals, including those with a developmental disability, feel they are accepted and belong. An accessible center that welcomes people from all backgrounds with a menu of social, education, recreation, health, life skills, and life-changing programs. Imagine, if you will, somebody new to our city going to VIQ, wanted to become a volunteer, and the person at VIQ says, "That's wonderful, thank you very much. Now what I'd like you to do is leave this office and go down the hall, and I'd like to speak to the people at the Y, and they're going to set you up with a 3-month membership to the Y so you can become more involved in our community." Or the clients at QVSS, where we would not look at having a food service agency come in, but rather we would have clients from QVSS actually provide the services and the food services to clients, and also have the opportunity to become involved in health and recreation programs. As you can see, over the last number of years, there have been many, many infrastructure programs in this city. We've built bridges, we've built wellness centers, we've done work on our industrial center, we've built bike paths, and of course we've done the downtown. Some of these investments, they needed to be completed, while others were designed to improve the quality of life and make our community more attractive today and for the future of our children and their children. There is a commitment to grow and strengthen our community by attracting new business, attracting new jobs, thus keeping our families here, keeping our young people here, and adding new families to our great community, making Belleville a destination to work, live, and play. A planned strategy which could see our community population increase from 40,000 to 60,000, or possibly 65,000 people over the next number of years. Essentially, the work you've done has indicated that Belleville is open for business. But with growth will come challenges and a need for social infrastructure. Individuals and families are calling on organizations like the YMCA, VIQ, and QVSS to deliver important community services in accessible and welcoming facilities. As we look at the future, we need facilities that will enable the delivery of more programs and more services, reaching a broader section of our community. Programs will strengthen our caring community that promote well-being and strengthen the sector that delivers these programs. We will need the programs and services necessary to deal with planned growth. We need to ensure that there are ample opportunities for health and recreation programs and services that will serve our families today and the future, and not wait until it becomes an issue. A well-thought-out plan, a partnership that would strengthen our community while increasing services to meet the demand. A Centre for Life will make our community a better place for business and industry to invest, a place where people will want to raise families, where people will want to move, and where people will want to call home. The Centre for Life is building a better Belleville for everyone, creating a vibrant and inclusive community, a commitment to our children and our future, innovative. It was innovative, and it supports the charitable and social service sector. The new center will be sustainable. It will increase access to more people by the thousands, not the hundreds. It will improve the health and lives of our citizens, and it will impact our community for the next 60 years. It will deliver health and social programs to children, youth, adults, seniors, families, vulnerable people, and individuals with a developmental disability. The Centre for Life will support safe and welcoming communities, align and support many of Council's strategic themes, provide opportunities for personal growth and development, and be a catalyst in the regentrification of a neighborhood or area of our city. It will be purpose-planned and purpose-built. I'd like to focus for a moment and just talk about some of those strategic themes that Council has identified. One of your strategic themes is around infrastructure and the plan for and invest in new and expanded infrastructure to establish sufficient capacity to provide for growth in our community. You've done an amazing job on the work that you've done in order to attract business and prepare for new industry to come here. But again, I come back to that social infrastructure. We need those services in place to ensure that as we have new families and as we have new people come to our city, we are in a position to care for them. You've done much around industrial and commercial development. You have supported one of the things that you identify as the support initiatives that create available skilled labor force, including programs to retain youth in our community. Then we certainly need a plan and the necessary amenities that will attract these businesses. Residential development, we can build homes. We can build homes, but homes do not necessarily make a community. We all certainly recognize that besides homes, and I recognize that homelessness is an issue in our community, and that is something that you do need to address. But we also have to have those recreation, those health programs, those other services that will support people who are living in our neighborhoods. And of course, culture and recreation. You talk about the development of multi-purpose marketable sports and recreation facilities. This will be one of those. You talk about developing a park system, but also having facilities and services that promote health and wellness and address the needs of an aging population and our youth, and support a culturally diverse community. And the last is around community health and safety and security. Such a center and welcoming young people and bringing people from all walks of life will certainly will provide programs that support and certainly will reduce incidents of crime in our community and encourage the development of viable social safety net. This will do that. In March 2018, the federal government of Canada and the Ontario government signed a bilateral infrastructure agreement. Allocations for Ontario amount to $11.8 billion and are divided between 4 streams, one of which is community, culture, and recreation infrastructure. Ontario funding allocation for community, culture, and recreation infrastructure from the Government of Canada amounts to over $400 million, while Ontario will provide an additional over $300 million in provincial funding over a 10-year period. The expected outcomes of a project completion for projects under the community, culture, and recreation stream, and I quote, improved access and increased quality of community, culture, and recreation infrastructure for Canadians, including Indigenous people and vulnerable populations. There were 5 long-term results, one of those which were make Canadian communities more inclusive and accessible. Funding will support new and renewed facilities with a focus on supporting vulnerable populations. Here in Belleville, we wish to continue to explore those options for such a center, an innovative joint development between the City of Belleville and local partners. I'd submit that it is not the City's responsibility to do it alone. We are a better community when we work together, be partners in today's challenges to meet tomorrow's needs, and support each other to ensure our strategic objectives and your strategic themes are delivered upon and our community is richer and better for it. Let's be partners in building a better Belleville and creating a healthy, stronger, and vibrant community. What I'm asking for today from you, this new council, is to recommit your support by having us, the team that is looking at this center, to continue to work with staff. Mr. Fleur has been extremely helpful over the last number of years, and of course we recognize that there will be times come where we will have to require the service of other staff and the expertise of other staff. And so we would appreciate having that support to be able to continue that dialogue. This is a win, win, win. It is a win for the agencies, it is a win for our community, it is a win for the City of Belleville, and we can make our city that much better. I thank you for your time today.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Allen, for your presentation and for bringing along members of your board, Mr. Masterakis, and others, your campaign chairs. The Y is an important part of our community, and we appreciate it. Colleagues, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Allen? Councillor Culhane.
Thank you, Mayor Penchuk. Mr. Allen, thank you sincerely for all that you've done, for all that your co-workers and the other community service agencies have done for this community over the past many years. I'm very familiar with the Volunteer and Information Quinte book and the services that it offers. I'm familiar with the Y. I'm familiar with vocational support. I just have one question for you. Expanded cardiac and rehab programs designed to support chronic care. Is that planning being done in conjunction with Quinte Healthcare?
So we currently actually work with Quinte Healthcare, and we actually worked with Hotel Dieu as well. So we do see a number of cardiac patients at the Y currently who come to see us, and we deliver cardiac rehabilitation to those patients. So we would certainly, as we start looking at this center, and as you see there's 3 partners listed there.
Yep.
This is a process, and this is the beginning of a discussion. So certainly what I would want to do, and certainly would hope in working with staff, is to say, who are other potential partners, and how can we meet the needs of even more people to make this truly a center for life?
Thank you. I honestly admire the effort that's gone into organizing and bringing your proposal to this point. I guess at heart I'm wondering, will this ease any of the burden on Quinte Healthcare?
When I think of, we spend, there's an awful lot of dollars and cents, man.
Yeah.
You know, there seems to be an awful lot of spending, which is necessary, on healthcare and supporting hospitals. And not enough. We're seeing cutbacks in our school system. We're seeing cutbacks in the first things that are to go are recreational programs and health services. So I think the more we invest in that social infrastructure to get people at an early age, from the time they're young, involved in health programs, young people involved in leadership programs, people exercising, people you're taking the pass when it comes to bike pass and things like that, then I think that in the long run, in the long term, will certainly help our community.
I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Councillor Coyne. Councillor Kelly.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Allen, thank you for the presentation. I want to welcome Sam Brady and John Masterakis from the Y to the meeting tonight. I just want to say I value the work of the Belleville YMCA. I'm there, some might argue, 4 or 5 times a week, but I took my kids there 6, 7 years ago, and it became routine for us. So I took some notes when you were speaking, and I know the youth programs that you have. I see it. I see the families daily there, and I see the value. The staff. We talked about rehabilitation and some of the folks there that have had a challenge with cardiac arrest or with their health issues. I see them there, but they stay longer than what they're supposed to be doing with their therapist because it's a destination for them. And the programs and the staff and your partnership with QVSS and Volunteer and Information Quinte, to me that's a win-win. The Belleville YMCA is so involved in the community, and I think sometimes we forget. Just a few weeks ago, we wrapped up the Christmas season, Operation Red Nose. All those volunteers that worked for the YMCA and the Red Nose, $30,000 a couple weeks ago, presentation to the Y, and $10,000 for Camp Trillium. So those are some of the benefits that the Y does, but speaking personally as a dad, I know the value, and it's like home. And we know our kids are safe there and families safe. There's a lot of good energy going on there. So good luck with this project.
Thank you.
Right. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. First of all, I'm certainly used the one program at the Y after my heart surgery, so I commend you in that. I should have stayed longer. I might be in better shape. But besides that...
You're always welcome back, Councillor.
That's right. Besides that, have you started a fundraising campaign or a goal that the Y is aiming to raise to get this started, or what's the process that the Y is going through for this?
So I think part of that process will be the dialogue with our staff to see with city staff and with our community partners to look at, so what will the center look like? And I don't want to go drawing a center and imagining what it might look like. And then you start looking at the costs. And I think when we can establish what we think something like that will cost, It's going to come to where it might be, where it could be, and then we can come back, and then I think at that point, and that's why I'm not here to ask for any money today. I think that's where we can come back and say, so this is what that partnership would look like. For us to really have any opportunity, I think, to have the support of the Ontario government or the federal government, it's the city has to be a partner in this project. And what that might look like, I don't know. I have plenty of ideas that I'm not prepared to share right now, but certainly I think I would be getting ahead of myself, and I think it would be fair to you.
And I have to agree, the city, we have the sports center, that only covers one segment of our community. The Y covers another segment of our community, and I think the city should be involved. It just, where we fit in is a big thing, but it would be wrong if we weren't involved in some way, shape, or form. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Councillor Millette.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Allen. It's no secret I've had a bit of involvement with the Y over the years. Past board member and a honorary chair of the campaign. Just a quick question for you. And again, I would echo everything that everybody else has said in glowing terms. You don't need to hear more of it because we all feel it. But your Partners Plus, it says here. What's the plus? So you don't mind me asking. And one other supplementary question. The last time you were here was 2016, I believe. What's changed since then, if you don't mind? Thank you.
Sure. So certainly in the discussions, I'll answer what's changed. In the discussions in working with city staff, I run the Y, and so I can get focused on running the Y, and that is my job. As a community person myself have been involved in a number of charitable organizations and worked with a number of charities. I understand the big picture, and I really look at this from we are a strong organization. We are a revenue-generating organization, but how can we be better? And how can we work with other agencies and strengthen ourselves and other agencies so that we can be more sustainable and impact that many more people and have more people become involved in our programs? And I think what the city needs, and based on the growth and what you as a councillor are doing and what's taken place, that would be better served if we all came together. And you see a number of agencies that move in and they move into old buildings that they have to move out of. And so we're talking about purpose-planned, purpose-built, that will support our community, that will support the agencies, where we will work together to deliver programs and services that will become sustainable moving forward. As for the Partners Plus, these were the three partners that are in right now, but the door is always open for further dialogue and further discussion to make this truly a center for life.
That was my question there. Is there room for more agencies, I guess?
More agencies and other organizations? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I look, Councillor Thompson had spoken about the Wellness Centre. And actually, by becoming involved in working with city staff, I've actually received an education on the Wellness Centre. I truly understand it more. I really do understand it more than I did probably 9 years ago. And one last thing, if I may, and I was neglectful when I was doing the introductions, and I told them I was going to do this so they're both aware. If anybody has any questions about building a Y, we have the former mayor of the city of Quinte West right behind me who has built a Y, and then beside him is actually Mr. McDougall's father was actually involved in building the Y in Belleville 55 years ago. So, yeah.
Great.
I didn't know they were going to be here. I'm just glad that they were. I thank Jennifer May Anderson from Hospice for having them attend.
Anyone else, colleagues? So, Mr. Williams, or
Just
Councillor
last
Williams?
one, Mr. Allen. Thank you very much. And I love the collaborative nature of bringing things together. I think you've learned that as well from some of the rest. But I wanted to mention one of your campaigns that you do every year, which is really great. I know Mr. Brady is here, is Strong Kids. And that's just a phenomenal campaign to help children. And I know we're always involved. And this last, I just want to know, how many memberships do we have, or do you have in the Y in Belleville?
So overall, in membership-wise, we've had a positive year. We made some changes in our building, and we did that out of, we needed to ensure that we stayed relevant. Our building is 55 years old. This is 55 years old, and I know how much work it takes. And so, sorry, I didn't mean to get that look, Councillor Williams, but so we've got over 3,200 members now at RY, an average of 20% of our membership. Our goal is anywhere between 20 and 22% of our membership is receiving some form of financial assistance. Having said that, that doesn't mean we have a cap. We've actually just changed the way we do business, making it more accessible and easier for people who require assistance to join the Y. Because we feel that it impacts their lives. It gives them a place to be. And Councillor Kelly had mentioned the importance of people feeling welcome and feeling like they're home in an organization. And we think that this centre can really capture that and do that.
All right, anyone else? So Mr. Allen, some of our council is new from the last time you came to see us in 2016. And I wonder if you can just really briefly outline some of the assistance the city is providing for you. We have a resolution already which we directed staff to work with you as you develop a new facility. But if you can just maybe bring them up to speed. And then we won't need a new resolution because the resolution's existing. We'll just move to receive this. But I think it'd be helpful if you just sort of talked about the assistance you've been getting from the city to this point.
Sure. So city staff have been very helpful and to date to be able to identify and help us to look at what are the big issues that the city itself, that the municipality is dealing with. We have our own idea of what those issues are. What are some of the challenges that are coming up? Where can we make a difference around programming? So we talk about the synergy of programming. When it comes to, we certainly have many ideas as to, oh, we'd like to go here or we'd like to go there. I think staff really help us look at the big picture of where the city is growing, where we might fit, where we would best be served, and provide that kind of advice. And to really, to be truly honest with you, Your Worship, is it's helped me to really see the big picture of things, and not just from my window that is the Y. And so with advice and counsel that way. So I really appreciate that. Those sets of years that can help guide.
Good. Well, we wish you certainly the best of luck going forward, and we're working with you, and we appreciate that. Colleagues, the resolution is that the deputation by David Allen, President and Chief Executive Officer of the YMCA of Central East Ontario regarding the new Y project be received. Moved by Councillor Culhane, seconded by Councillor Millette. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you, and carry on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next deputation is Ms. Jennifer May Anderson, the Executive Director of Hospice Quinte, will make a deputation to City Council. Good afternoon, Ms. May Anderson. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
It's nice to see you again. I was very happy to be at that exciting announcement with Councillor Culhane regarding provincial funding. So we're great to have you here. If you can just push the button and turn the little red light on, and then we're all set.
I think we're good.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Your Worship, and members of Council. I have with me at the podium today our campaign co-chairs, Ross McDougall and John Williams, and we also have in the audience today our Board President, Darcy French, and our Vice President, Michael Piercy, who have come to show support today, as well as a few staff members. So I would like to turn it over for a moment to Ross and John.
Former Mayor McDougall, welcome back to Belleville City Council.
Thank you so much, Your Worship, members of Council, members of Belleville City staff. Nice to be back. I used to sit on that side. It's a little different for me now. And Chris used to sit over here. Yeah, but in any event, as you know, we're here today to talk about the hospice. We are starting the process of building a residential hospice. I was approached, along with John, about 2 months ago with the concept and with a request to become one of the co-chairs of the hospice. I didn't have to think very long before I agreed that I would be one of the co-chairs. I have had no involvement with the hospice over the years, but when they approached me to be a co-chairman, I realized that I felt very strongly that it was something that was important for our communities and something that I wanted to be a part of. It is in my estimation, a building and a concept whose time has come in this region. There has been, I believe, always a bit of a misconception that Belleville already has or has had a residential hospice because we do provide hospice services. The truth is we do not have a residential hospice in the Quinte area, and nor have we ever. And this would be our first opportunity to do this. The campaign is just beginning. John and I are on board, and we are in the process of choosing and asking people to come on board to help with our fundraising committee. Some have agreed to do that, and others are in the process of considering it and being asked. As you may be aware, we have kick-started the campaign. The City of Quinte West has given us $1 million cash donation and has also given us I believe it's 3 acres of land to start this project right across from Bayside Secondary School. In addition to giving us the land, they are clearing the land, making it ready for our building, and they have provided us with the servicing and waiving fees for construction of the building. Certainly, it's my hope that this becomes a joint effort between the City of Quinte West and the City of Belleville. Also in our catchment area are Tyendinaga and Deseronto, and in the fullness of time we will also be approaching them and talking to them. We're hoping to, not today, but at a certain time, come to the City of Belleville and ask for financial support for this project. We're hopeful that the City of Belleville will see their way to providing us with support somewhere in the general area of what the City of Quinte West has done. Certainly the majority of the people that get hospice counseling at this time are from the City of Belleville, and that will probably undoubtedly be the case once the residential hospice is built. So again, I'm just here today to talk to you about the project. Obviously, I'm just doing the basic outline here for you, and Jennifer will talk more specifically about this, and my co-chair John Williams may want to add to what I've said.
You know, you've talked about
Well,
yeah, well, you have a little less time.
We need to hear something from former Quinte
Well, thank you very much, Your
Williams.
Worship, members of council. It's just an honor and pleasure to be here in front of Belleville Council and get this chance. In fact, I don't think I've ever had this chance before. Ross said it all. I think the key thing in what I'm involved in and him is this is about a joint effort. This is about the City of Quinte West and the City of Belleville coming together. Has been happening many things in the past to put something together which we think benefits the whole area. And hospice, again, as Ross said, I think people think there was one. There is not one here. It's very much needed, and I think the community will come together hopefully and support this. But you know, what's important is the City of Quinte West has set some certain things that they want to do. Hopefully Belleville will, once we understand it, we'll be able to support it also. But you know, it's about the joint in the area, and I think what's been established here in the last number of years is how this area has come together, and whether it's in one community or the other, they tend to become about supporting each other. So I think that's hopefully what will happen in this case also. So I'll let Jennifer carry on and give some more details.
Thank you. One of the questions that I get asked first often is, what is hospice palliative care? And hospice palliative care is a very special kind of health care that happens at the end of life when cure is no longer possible for someone. And we work at Hospice Quinte to provide comfort and dignity to all of our clients and to support the family and caregivers as people transition through a terminal illness, through the end of life, and then also into bereavement. As Ross and John mentioned, our service area is quite large. We serve the municipalities of Belleville, Quinte West, Tyendinaga Township, and Deseronto, as well as the Tyendinaga Mohawk Territory, and we have been doing so in these communities since 1985. And we are, in our communities, one of the largest providers of bereavement support services. Give you a little bit of an idea of who we serve. 67% of the people we serve are from the City of Belleville and 23% from the City of Quinte West. One of the things that everyone is usually surprised to hear, people think of hospice palliative care as a service for mainly our senior population, but just under 40% of our clients are below the age of 65. So we do serve all ages and stages of people in the community. Currently, we have 3 main services. Because we don't have a hospice residence, we do provide volunteer support to those with terminal illnesses in their home, with trained volunteers to support them and their families. We also provide caregiver support groups at our office in the Bayview Mall and bereavement support services at our office. We receive most of our funding through fundraising and donations, but we do receive almost 30% of our funding from the Southeast Land, and that's for the operation of our programs. So we do depend a lot on contributions from the community to ensure that our service stays open. There is now a need to do more. I think everybody is well aware that our population is aging, and while we don't only serve seniors, we do predominantly serve those who are 65 and over. And one of the things that comes really loud and clear when you speak to people about end-of-life issues is no one says, boy, I hope my last days are spent in a hospital. People want to spend their last days at home. In fact, 70 to 80% of people say that they would like to spend their last days at home. And unfortunately, almost 70% of people spend their last days in hospital. Now, for those who are in precarious circumstances or who are on their own or have an aging or frail caregiver, spending those last days in home may not be possible. And a hospice residence provides that bridging the gap for those people so they can have their end-of-life days in a home-like atmosphere, but fully supported with nursing and PSW staff. So this is a schematic drawing of our plan for our hospice care center. Our plan is to move all of our services that we currently provide into the new building, as well as have expanded services. So we will be able to provide, as well as a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week nursing and PSW care for 6 residents. We will have spiritual care areas, complementary care areas. And what is really, we have a couple of truly innovative things. A lot of hospices are being built and have been built across the province in recent years, but the Hospice Quinte Care Center will be truly innovative because we will have access to outdoor space that is private for each residence. Typically, hospice residents are built on a courtyard model, where if people are going to enjoy the outdoors, they have to do so in full view of all the rest of the residents and their families. Everyone who is in our care will have private access to a private outdoor patio. The other thing that is innovative about the Hospice Quinte Care Center is we fully believe that people want to have as much like home as they possibly can. And so while we have a communal dining area and communal kitchen area for families and people who are supporting our residents, we will have 3 private family room, sunroom areas where people can live their life the way that they would at home. You wouldn't normally entertain guests in your bedroom, so you'll be able to have those family times. So the hospices that I toured, one of the most fantastic things that I saw was in one of the hospices was family having a birthday party. And the patient was in the room, in the family room with their bed. There were some kids coloring on the floor. Adults were gathered in the chairs. And I thought, wow, wouldn't that be nice if you could do that privately and not on display as it was in that hospice residence. So that's innovative. We will have nursing stations, medical storage, and space to train our volunteers, as well as space for all of our support groups that we take care of. This is a conceptual drawing of the hospice residence. We wanted to take advantage of the green space that's available on the 3-acre site that we have. We also wanted to ensure as much privacy for our residents as we could. And by having the administrative and volunteer areas across the front, that will help break the noise of Highway 2. We also are building with the capacity to expand the center to include 4 more residence rooms at the back. So we are building with the thought that in future years we'll probably need to expand. So progress to date. Hospice Quinte board members and volunteers have been working for many, many years on this project, but most recently, in May of last year, we engaged our project manager. July, we engaged our architect. We've done all kinds of the technical things that you do required for a building. And of course, as Ross and John said in December, they were engaged to be our co-chairs. We were very fortunate. Our Stage 2 business case was submitted to the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care last month, and they turned that around with an approval in less than 24 hours. So clearly, the province is behind us with their capital support of $1.2 million towards the project, but also they're continuing to support the project. So our next steps, we will be presenting to the other municipalities that we serve, as John and Ross said, recruiting the rest of our committee, and working on the final detailed design phase, and then submitting our 60% design and technical submission to the Ministry of Health. And then you folks have something to say to close?
Yeah, no, all I would just say is thank you for your time. We certainly know that we need the support of Belleville City Council if this project is going to be successful. It's a $9.5 million fundraising drive, and again, my hope is that we're cautiously optimistic that we can do this. It's going to take a lot of hard work, but we know we need the City of Belleville in order to succeed. And again, I guess not having been involved with hospice, I guess the thing that sticks out most to me is that we all want to die in our own home. That's what we want to do when that stage happens, and that's just not possible. It's not going to happen to us the way we want it, and this is the next best thing. And I think it's a great idea, which is why I'm supporting it. Thank you very much. We'd be happy to answer any questions you might have, any that require any actual knowledge. Jennifer will do it. If it requires no knowledge, either John or I will.
Well, thank you very much. Councillor Culhane.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you very much for the work you've done to date and for coming here today. 50 years of nursing showed me clearly that the end of life is possibly one of the thorniest topics that can be discussed. I remember an effort many years ago to open a hospice on Wyra Street. That people were simply not ready for that. The end of life was considered to be a hospital purview. I couldn't agree with you more. People deserve to be in their own homes, and if they can't be in their own homes, they deserve to be in a setting where they are constantly attended and their needs are met. It's a very worthy project, and I thank you for bringing it forward.
Right, thank you, Councillor Culhane. Councillor Millette.
Thank you, Your Worship. Jennifer, as a son who's buried two parents who died of cancer in hospital, young age, 57 and 63 they were, and they should have had a more dignified end. I've also had the privilege of hearing one of the foremost experts on death and dying, Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, speak in person. And that inspired me, at any chance I get to see this initiative through to fruition. I'm behind it 100%. My question then is 6 units. If it's going to serve this region, is 6 units going to be enough off the hop, or is that all that's financially feasible in the fundraiser?
So one of the steps in order to get approval for capital funding from the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care was the Southeast LHIN had to approve the project first. The Southeast LHIN did a population study, and they looked at all kinds of factors to determine how many beds they thought would be required. And we submitted, in our business case application to the Southeast LHIN, we submitted 3 scenarios. One was a 3-bed hospice in Quinte West and a 3-bed hospice in City of Belleville. That was one scenario. One scenario was 6 beds to serve all the communities. And the third was status quo. We wouldn't change anything. We just continue with our in-home visiting services. And the Southeast LHIN supported the 6-bed total community option, and so that's what we were able to send forth to the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care. The way that Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care funds hospice beds is they fund them through the Southeast LHIN, and they fund through all the LHINs in the province, but for us through the Southeast LHIN. And whatever the LHIN approves, you receive $105,000 per year per bed. So, I mean, there are hospices that decide to build more beds, but then the onus is on the community through fundraising to support those beds.
Yes, just one final observation. As I said, I'm fully behind it. Hats off then to Quinte West for the initiative that they've done. I'm tired of seeing Quinte West beat us on initiatives like this. Habitat for Humanity, I think it's time for this council to step up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Millette. Anyone else? Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Mayor Panchuk, and thank you for your presentation. And obviously, it's a subject that nobody wants to talk about, but each one of us is going to face. You mentioned that the presentation was to provide just an overview of your goals in terms of financing as well as the actual structure and operation itself. You said you're not really looking for money from the City of Belleville right now, but the question I have is when would you want that discussion to be had? And the reason why is, as you are well aware, we have a budget cycle, and so if we're going to start talking about the financing, and I agree with some of the comments around the table, certainly the City of Belleville needs to participate. I want to make sure that we give fair enough advance to staff to prepare something for us, and then it gets into our budget cycle. So perhaps maybe you could help me, and then I'll know what to do next.
I wanted to make sure that Hospice Quinte came to you and showed you an update on where the project was, and to show you how far we have come since the beginning, when it was just an idea several years ago. And we're looking to start construction, best case scenario, in 2020. So it would be great for us to be able to give you enough advance notice so that you would be able to put us in mind for that time frame.
Okay. Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, quick question. You quoted a 9.5 million, I think it was, in the total project. Did that total project include the donation of the $1 million, or is it 9.5 less those fees, or is it still 9.5 over above what you received from Quinte West?
The total budget is 9.5, so we have already received then the $1.2 million from the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care and the $1 million from Quinte West, so now we're looking at just over $7 million.
Thank you very much.
All right, anyone else? Yep, go ahead.
Can I add something as a former politician?
Absolutely.
And I heard Jennifer's answer on when we would like you to consider money for us. And I just want to make it clear what we're trying to do, which is, we're trying to build a hospice in 2020. We're hoping that we get a commitment from the City of Belleville much sooner than 2020. We're hoping to get a commitment when the money comes, 2020, that's less important. When a commitment from the City of Belleville comes that, yes, in fact, they will support the project and an amount, that we would like sooner rather than later, and we will be providing written documentation on all these things and more detail on the amount of money that we hope to get in the very near future.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much. Colleagues, just for your information, support of this type of an organization we typically handle during our operating budget discussions, which are set for beginning of April. And I've already had a couple of conversations with Deputy Treasurer Hines talking about our existing commitments that we have to other organizations. And then part of our operating discussions this year will be an update and a report so that we can be in a position to consider future pledges for not just Hospice Quinte, but other organizations. So I appreciate the fact that they came today giving us an understanding of our process. They made an excellent presentation. As many of you have suggested, the end of life is a very difficult situation, but one which is not all of us are going to have to go through. And this is an organization that through compassion and humanity provides a better way for people to spend those last moments on life. And that's something that we'd all would want to look forward to. Thank you very much for your time and for your attention. We look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you for taking this on for the Quinte region and the City of Belleville, and certainly is appreciated.
Thank you.
The resolution is that the deputation by Jennifer May Anderson, Executive Director of Hospice Quinte, providing Council with an update on the Hospice Quinte Hospice Care Centre project, be received. Moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Sanderson. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Correspondence, seeing none. Committee of the Whole. Motion to go in a committee of the whole to hear and consider reports, passing of recommendations and resolutions with Councillor Culhane in the chair. Moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor McCaw. All in favor? It's carried. The chair is yours.
We'll begin with reports. The agenda shall include, under reports, items that warrant individual attention from council. First item, 8A1, reorganization of staffing, Office of the Mayor and CAO. Manager of Human Resources report number MHR-2019-06. And the resolution reads, that pursuant to the Manager of Human Resources report number MHR 2019-06, reorganization of staff, Office of the Mayor and CAO, the organizational alignments noted be approved, and that the new positions of Special Projects Assistant, Mayor and Council Services, and Communications and Social Media Assistant, and the revised staff position of Coordinator of Mayor and Council Services receive pre-budget approval. May I have a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Kelly and Councillor Kelly. All in favor?
Good question.
Yes, Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thank you very much. In this here, we're asking for the positions to be approved, but we're also asking for pre-budget approval. I have a bit of a concern with asking for pre-budget approval because we've gone through numerous years before with pre-budget approval, and I just want to state that this pre-budget approval will have an impact when we go to budget approval in our operating budget in April. And giving pre-budget approval is something we have to be very careful of, because when we do this, that's going to impact our budget in April, along with other aspects. So I agree with the positions. I'm concerned that we could not wait till our regular operating budget in April to approve these particular, rather than asking for pre-budget approval.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Further comments? No further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Item 8A2, Recreation, Culture, and Community Services new staff position, Director's Assistant, RCCS Administrative Non-Union. I'm going to relinquish the chair for this item. Councillor Carr, would you like to? Or do I have to move it first? I beg your pardon? Oh, I left him out. I beg your pardon. Councillor Kelly? Just excuse me, please.
From where, here? 8A2, Recreation, Culture, and Community Services, new staff position, Director's Assistant, RCCS, Administrative Non-Union. Director of Recreation, Culture, and Community Services report, number DRCCS 2019-02. Resolution that pursuant to Director of Recreation, Culture, and Community Services report number DRCCS 2019-02, that City Council approved the hiring of one full-time Director's Assistant, RCCS, Administrative Non-Union position for the Recreation, Culture, and Community Services Department, and that the job duties and responsibilities be determined, and that the Director's Assistant, RCCS position receive pre-budget approval. Mover? Councillor Williams, seconder. Councillor McCaw. Any discussion? Councillor Culhane.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. If I may refer you back to the Centre for Life presentation that we just had. This translates directly into a great deal more work for Director Fleur. And in my previous 8 years on council, I saw his portfolio, if you like, expand on an almost daily basis. This is a job with multiple responsibilities, and I think this is a motion that should have come before council before, and I strongly support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Councillor Millette.
Just an observation similar to what Councillor Culhane said. I'm quite surprised when this was brought to us that this position hadn't existed before. So knowing all of what's on Director Fleur's plate, I hate to butter his toast like this, but this is long overdue.
Thank you. Any Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, just again, I'm going to support the motion. I just want to note that, again, it's a pre-budget approval, and it does have an impact on our budget in April, but Mr. Fleur hasn't had an assistant in that certain capacity for a number of years, and it's certainly needed, so I will support the motion.
All right. Thank you. Mayor Panchak.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. You know, shortly after the election, I had meetings with many of the city's managers and directors, and one of the questions I asked them is that if we were able to make some changes to make things better for you and for your department and the mission of the city in that area, give me some suggestions. And I received a number of them. And through the course of that consideration, it became very apparent to me that we had some capacity issues in 3 general areas. First dealt with mayor and council services, and we've corrected that in terms of these new positions, and we're already seeing the benefits of the extra people to help us with those duties, and we will be able to modernize the way City Council operates, providing better service for residents. The second area dealt with recreation, culture, and community services in Director Fleur's department, and I saw a need for us to do more, and in order to have that capacity to do more, we needed to fill it. You know, just a couple of examples of some of the things that are coming down. Many people will be aware that I have expressed, and we have expressed, some interest as a city in the former VIA station as a potential site for a museum. And I have received in writing back from VIA Canada their interest in allowing us to go to the next stage. Going to the next stage is a fair amount of work. Before we would make a decision that this would be something we want to do, we have to do our due diligence. Items such as the structural integrity of the building, whether it's appropriate for housing historical documents, all those types of things are going to be added to the director's plate as we go forward, and this system will be able to help with. In addition to that, you know, the Inclusion Committee has currently been under the office of the Economic Development Department, and it's more of a cultural issue, so as we shift at moving there. The Centre for Life, as Councillor Culhane has pointed out. But also, many people may be aware that when we gave the go-ahead for these upgrades to the sports centre for now the CA arena, Councillor Carr and myself were adamant about the fact that this would not be just an upgrade for hockey. It would not just be an improvement for the Belleville Senators, that we would see that facility also help other parts of our community, that we would be able to have more events, trade shows, conferences, be able to attract ourselves. You know, the challenge again is that facility has grown in terms of attendance, and then we are now going to be saying that we want to grow even further, but yet there is no administrative support to be able to help go to, you know, when I talked about this at that time, we were talking about, you know, wouldn't it be wonderful if one of the provincial political parties would select Belleville as a place for their annual conventions or for their leadership processes or whatnot. There's a lot of work that has to go in terms of being able to bid for that, and so this would be something that would be able to help there. You know, that helps with us for revenue as well. It helps build the revenue of the city of Belleville, which helps pay for the position. And the last item that I just want to point out is that, you know, on items that are confidential in nature, Director Fleur has very little support in being able to handle the administrative part of it, the paperwork, et cetera. And this position, that's why this position is being proposed the way it is, so that it allows for it. If you're following what I said, I talked about there were 3 areas, and I mentioned 2. I mentioned Mayor and Council Services and Recreation, Culture, and Community Services. The third area that I think we'll have to turn our attention to is going to be in economic development, and that will be coming forth during our operating budget. The reason why this is coming forth now is that we can't wait until April to make a decision and then go and post it. We need to start moving on some of these initiatives now, and that's why it's brought forward. So I know it's a long explanation, but I just wanted to provide some perspective for everyone. Certainly I'll be supporting this, and I encourage everyone else to as well.
All right, thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, and just to echo our colleague's sentiments, sometimes with Mr. Fleur, we're not wondering what he's doing, just sometimes wonder what he doesn't do, because he does a lot in the city, and he's very valued. Just a question, just for public, because again, I'm a first, and 5 of us are first-term councillors or rookies here, and for public knowledge, I'm going to go through the chair to Mr. Kester. Can you just outline the policy and how we're going to be hiring? Because to bring a new staff in, I think it's important for people that are interested that see this position and definitely maybe want to work with Mr. Fleur, just how that works and the process publicly. Thank you.
Through the chair to Councillor Williams and all council. So typically when we hire new positions, we post both internally and externally to the city. So that gives an opportunity for current staff, and it also gives an opportunity for the outside folks. This is a non-union position, so it's an equal footing between inside and outside workers, so we select the most qualified individual for the positions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, you know, I want to echo the comments of Councillor Thompson, because I agree, and we can get down a dangerous road when we start doing pre-budget approval and the numbers start to add up and we look at it within the context of the budget. But, you know, based on the explanation I've heard and the comments that Mr. Fleur has worked really hard, well, now that he's going to have a position such as this, we can work him a little harder, I guess, by the looks of it. So we'll keep an eye on that going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Any other comments? Call for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Now, we wanted to break. Next one, okay. Proceeding to 8A3, City of Belleville Grant Committee, Director of Finance / Treasurer's Report, number DF 2019-07. And the resolution reads that pursuant to the Director of Finance / Treasurer's Report, number DF 2019-07, City of Belleville Grant Committee recommends to City Council the following amendments. Number 1, Grant Committee Terms of Reference, which is Attachment A. Number 2, Grant Policy, Attachment B. And number 3, Social Infrastructure Funding Application, Attachment C. May I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Williams and Councillor Carr. Discussion? Councillor Thompson?
In the explanation under grant policy on page 10, has it always been that the culture application entertained operating expenses submissions? Or is that new, or has that been there? I'm just asking for one of the, whoever looks at that.
Who would be? Thank you, Councillor Thompson. I'll refer that question to Ms. Hines.
Through the chair to Councillor Thompson. Yes, that's always been there.
And second question, on page 11.
One moment, please.
Sorry, my apologies.
I missed Councillor Carr.
Yeah. If I can just provide some information as the past chair of the committee.
Yeah.
So previously, the Belleville Community Arts and Culture Fund was not permitted to go towards operating expenses. It was only for new projects or new programs that the arts community had. The the outgoing committee is recommending that there be a change, that there be some additional funding provided to this committee, and that additional funding be permitted for operational expenses. And the reason for it is because many of these groups are struggling just to stay open. And asking them to provide a new initiative or a new program became really burdensome. And so the recommendation for the change for this committee, the Belleville Community Arts and Culture Fund, is that the new funding amount be allowed to go towards operating expenses if necessary.
So that paragraph is new then? Okay, thank you. And my second question, if I may, on the committee structure, and it's great that the mayor is the ex-official, and it says 4 voting members consist of 3. So I understand then there'll be the 3 councillors and the mayor will have a vote then, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Any further discussion? Councillor McCaw? No? Seeing none? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Item 8A4, City of Belleville Grant Committee, Director of Finance/Treasurer's Report number DF 2019-08. The resolution reads that Council approve the recommendation of the Grant Committee for those applications outlined in the Director of Finance/Treasurer's Report number DF 2019-08, City of Belleville Grant Committee, and that the Grant Committee recommends to Council that pre-budget approval be given to the distribution of $50,000 from the Social Infrastructure Reserve account to support a community service provider for the purpose of establishing an overnight warming center until March 31st, 2019, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to enter into an agreement for such purpose.
Can we, before we get a mover, can we deal with B, C, and F, because Councillor Williams has... And these are on the same motion. Yeah, all 84, but if we get a separate motion to approve B, C, and F individually, then we can
Okay.
do the...
At this point, I'm asking for a separate motion to approve items B, C, and F separately, as Councillor Williams has declared a conflict on those items. Moved by Councillor Carr, second, Councillor Kelly. Those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried, and we'll proceed. Okay. No, no problem. You got it. I have no idea what I'm doing. I get paid anyway. Now, how do I start here?
So you've read the motion.
Yeah.
Just say that you're seeking a motion, say to accept B, C, and F.
Okay. Where is he? Not coming back?
You can call that motion.
I can call it? Okay. I'm looking for a motion, save and accept items B, C, and F to approve the others. Moved by Mayor Penchuk, second. Councillor Kelly. All those in favor? Oh, discussion, sorry. Anybody want to discuss that? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Return to the original resolution? No, that's it? Okay, I'm good. So then it's carried then, the original item, okay. Moving on to consent items. Council may adopt consent items by one motion. Oh. What did I do? Sorry, Councillor Sanderson.
We need to have a discussion, no? Sorry, I did. Yeah.
Oh, did you? I'm so sorry.
So first the question.
I apologize if I missed you.
No problem, Madam Chair. So first the question, these two paragraphs are one resolution. Is that correct?
These two paragraphs?
Yeah.
And that's save and accept.
Okay, so I'd like to make a friendly amendment to the second part of the resolution, and the change would be to change the date from until March the 31st, 2019, to change it to April the 10th, 2019, and then I'll offer an explanation as to why.
The seconder, Councillor Kelly. Oh, Kelly McCaw. We're good with that? They're good with that.
So, just by way of explanation, this morning I met with Paul Tavares, and he's in the audience today, and together we toured the Grace Inn shelter with Jody Jenkins. And Paul arrived in Belleville on the weekend and has pitched his tent close to where the Grace Inn shelter is. He's on an awareness campaign for the homeless, where he plans to spend 60 days and 60 nights camped out in 13 different cities across our province. The campaign, which is called 90 Days and Nights in the Cold, his goal this year, and Paul's done this in years past, 1 year past, is to raise $150,000. 10,000 in each of the 12 cities he travels to, and 30,000 in his home base in Cambridge. All proceeds would remain in the community, and for Belleville, it would either go to the Grace Inn shelter or the Salvation Army. As we toured the facility, Paul shared his experience having straddled both sides of the homelessness, and along with that, what was happening in other communities. Paul offered some suggestions, and when the subject of a temporary warming shelter was raised, he suggested it would be great to keep it open till the second week in April, as temperatures can still be miserably cold. So that was the reason for making the friendly amendment, and thank you.
Councillor Millette?
Yes, sorry, further to that second is not going to alter it at all. It's not an amendment. I would support that amendment because if we need to keep this open longer for whatever reason, while giving Grace Inn a little more grace period, if you will, pardon the pun, to get along and help out, I'm all for it. This is catching a few people by surprise, so I won't go into too much detail, but just prior to entering the open session at council, I had an offer through Loyalist College for our warming center if there's a need for trained and police background checked individuals to volunteer. They're available, and I'll get into more details outside. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Millette. At this point, I would like to ask Council's permission to suspend the rules and bring Mr. Tavares forward. I'd like to just make a comment. I'd like to meet him. Briefly. Mr. Tavares?
Good evening. I'm not sure what to expect here. So
Welcome. No, nobody told you. I just decided. I wanted to thank you for your initiative. I wanted to tell you that personally I have spent 7 nights on the coldest night in January in a cardboard box. I thoroughly appreciate what you're doing and why you're doing it. I wondered if anyone on council had any questions for you. And seeing none, I just wanted to thank you very much from all of us.
thank you. Thank you for having me in your city.
You're most welcome. So, moving on now. Moving on to consent items. Recall the vote on. Oh, so the change in date, everyone's in agreement? Everyone unanimous? Hands up? Yep, everybody agrees. There you go. No opposed. 8B, consent items. Council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and council shall consider such items individually. The motion reads that the following agenda items be approved with the exception of items. Councillor Thompson, any exceptions?
No, thank you.
Councillor McCaw?
No, thank you.
Councillor Kelly?
No, thank you.
Councillor Carr?
No, thank you.
Your worship?
No, thank you.
Councillor Williams?
No, thank you.
Councillor Sanderson?
No, thank you.
Councillor Millet?
No, thank you.
With no exceptions, therefore, the motion reads that the following agenda items be approved. All those in favor? Oh, I don't have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Kelly, Councillor Carr. Councillor Carr. All those in favor? All those opposed? Seeing none, the motion is carried. 8B1. Oh, carried, right. 8C, council information matters. Council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and council shall consider such items individually. That the following agenda items be received, save and accept items. Councillor Thompson?
No, thank you.
Councillor McCaw?
No, thank you.
Councillor Kelly?
No, thank you.
Councillor Carr?
No, thank you.
Your worship?
No, thank you.
Councillor Williams?
No, thank you.
Councillor Sanderson?
No, thank you.
Councillor Millet? The motion reads that the following agenda items be received. All those in favor? Oh, mover and seconder. Oop. Councillor Carr, Councillor Kelly. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you very much. Motion is carried. So then we go back to, I need a motion to rise and report. Councillor Kelly, Councillor Carr, all those in favor? Thank you. Only made 9 mistakes.
Thank you very much, Councillor Culhane. Number 9, bylaw. Number 9, bylaws. First reading of bylaws. So we have 2 bylaws today. 2019 is -32 is a bylaw to appoint the signing officers for and on behalf of the Corporation of the City of Belleville, and 2019-33 is a bylaw to approve and authorize the acceptance of certain underground city services and water services in the Caniff Mills Estate Subdivision Phase 9. Can I get a motion for first reading? Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Culhane. All in favor? It's carried. Second reading, 2019-32 and 33. Can I get this on the floor, and then we can have a discussion if anyone wants some? Councillor Carr moves, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Any discussion on these bylaws? No, I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. And third reading of bylaws, 2019-32 and 33, moved by Councillor Williams and seconded by Councillor Millet. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. New business. Ladies and gentlemen, anyone have any new business they'd like to deal with? So, Councillor Carr, we'll go with you first.
Thank you, Mayor Panchuk. As you're aware, we've done a few amendments to the property standards bylaw, and I know that our next council meeting is not until early March, and I know staff are working very hard right now on the operating budget. So I'd actually like to make a motion for staff to prepare a report on current vacant buildings and any outstanding property standard issues, and also the creation of a vacant building registry for council's consideration for the 2019 operating budget.
Right. Councillor Carr, can I just ask you for clarification on the recommendation for a bylaw? Would you like it to be similar to the one that was introduced on the previous council and that did not get supported, or are you looking for something different in that?
If they want to resurrect that, that would be great.
Yeah, okay, that was, I believe, yours, your
Yes.
motion, and I seconded it, so we'll do that. The clerk has gotten that information, so we'll have that back for one of the, well, when they can. So, anyone else for any new business? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have two items tonight. I'll start with number one. Do you mind passing? So number one, I'm asking Council to support an application for the Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot Project through Immigration Canada. As we know, there's a very real and present housing crisis, as has been noted by this Council and by yourself, Your Worship, and is scheduled to be amplified by the construction and development sector's inability to grow our skilled trades. Framers, electricians, plumbers, and more. We're short between 200 or 300 of these trades in the region. Some home builders have been able to hire and are decreasing the amount of homes and units that they can build. Meanwhile, we have rents at an all-time high, and house prices are becoming more and more at a value range that this region prides itself in being in. The latest BREEZE study, and I've handed this out to Council so they can look at it as well, noted this problem in the recent report for construction and development in 2018, surveying 40 businesses in the construction and trades industry, but it was more unsettling that the same problem existed a decade ago in the same report in the 2009 study. I believe we have a clear case to the federal and provincial governments for work needed for skilled immigrants for this pilot project, and that combined with our neighbours and sister organizations such as Quinte Home Builders Association, Bay Quinte Regional Marketing Board, and other organizations, we have a case to make this work to save Belleville and the Bay Quinte region from a clear and present danger to growth and economic stagnation. The Rural Northern Immigration Pilot was developed to help spread the benefits of economic immigration to smaller communities throughout Canada. The Government of Canada will work with local communities to use immigration to help meet local labour market needs and support regional economic development. Test new pathway and permanent residence in rural Canada for skilled foreign nationals at various skill levels, and create a welcoming environment that encourage and help new immigrants to stay in their new communities. We would apply as a hybrid organization of a municipality with an independent board of directors made up of community stakeholders, which include at this point the City of Belleville, the lead with the Quinte Home Builders Association, Bay Quinte Regional Marketing, Quinte United Immigration Services, and if interested, and we would reach out to Quinte West, Prince Edward County, Hastings County, QEDC, and the other economic groups. And if we're selected, the Community-Based Economic Development Organization submits the application expected to manage the pilot for community. This involves working with community stakeholders, including employers, to attract and integrate newcomers. The Government of Canada will help selected communities establish ways to attract and integrate newcomers to your community. To be eligible to participate, your community must, and this is where we were looking at eligibility, you must be a community of 50,000 people or less and be located at least 75 kilometers from a core CMA. Now, when it came to the, and first of all, where this came out was the meeting at Roma, where Councillors Kelly and Culhane and myself were at. And this came from a meeting with the new federal rural economic development minister, as well as our own Minister of Economic Development, Todd Smith. When it came from looking at eligibility, we were first in a gray area, but then when working with both those ministers, they encouraged the City of Belleville to apply. And I've noted the reply in this statement here, but I've highlighted the reply. But since Belleville was just over the 50,000 mark for the 2016 census, and the index score is slightly lower than it was considered a remote community, I did raise these concerns with the Minister's office. I was told that because it's a pilot project, there may be some leniency if a strong application is submitted. There was a suggestion of including some of the smaller townships north of 401. So again, this is part of our Thurlow side of Belleville. And if there's interest to emphasize that rural aspect using community very loosely, and the application could very well include more than just the City of Belleville, as they're looking for a community interest and support, not just the municipality. Something else I'll point out that was just in the news the other day, the province of Quebec has stopped 50,000 applications for new immigrants. So there are skilled immigrants that are available and are looking for communities. We must apply by March 1st. We have to have a community interest form and economic development plan written in the last 3 years. The BREEZE report, in my feeling, is something that's significant. It has just been finished. A letter of support from a municipal leader, and a letter of support from a local regional immigrant serving organization. So my motion reads, if I can get to that, it's 3 parts. And just to point on this, if the community is selected, of course, we can move forward. Another thing I've highlighted in this report that's very important, We'll consult with provinces and territories before we make our decisions, and so far, the province, for our, of course, our rural region of Thurlow and for Belleville, we have 2 MPPs who both said they would support this application as it goes through. If our community is selected, we can again work with that organization and that task force to get immigrants to work with our local home builders and trades. And if it isn't selected, I'd just like to point, at least to this council, this is still a clear and present threat to this community, and if it isn't, at least we're headwind with organizational support, a task team, and maybe we can find other ways to make it work. So today I'm making a motion for the following. 1, to have staff complete an application for the Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot Project through Immigration Canada, have it submitted on or before March 1st. Number 2, that a task team on skilled trade immigration be created immediately. It would include the City of Belleville, QHBA, Quinte United Immigration Services, Bay Quinte Regional Marketing Board, and reach out to Quinte West, PEC, and any other Bay of Quinte municipality with the same challenges, and that there be a letter of support from the Mayor towards this application.
All right. Well, Councillor Williams, I have a few comments I'll make before I tell you how I think we should handle this. So first of all, you know, it's courtesy for your colleagues when this resolution like this can be done in advance so that they have time to consider it and look over the paperwork. I understand the urgency because of the timing of this motion in terms of when the application window is, but you know, it's very difficult for council to be able to provide reasonable input when we're dealing with something that just was shown to us right now. Secondly, you know, in the future, all members of council, I would expect that any reports coming to us are proper reports where you have letters from the appropriate ministries stating that you qualify if the funding criteria is such that there's some question about that. For me to say that I had a conversation with someone at a conference or something else and that's the basis of moving forward puts us in a situation where we may have some exposure. And so, you know, again, I think there are exceptional circumstances in this one with the March 1st deadline for the application. But I just caution us, you know, this should normally come as a notice of motion so that the information can be submitted to the clerk. Staff can work on it to be able to answer questions and bring it forward. You know, we're a serious organization that makes decisions thoughtfully and carefully, and we can only do that if we have the appropriate time to consider it. What I would suggest, Councillor Williams, so that I don't rule this out of order, is that and require a notice of motion, is that items number 1 and number 3 be what you are putting forth as your motion. The task team on skilled trade being created immediately, I just don't feel comfortable in allowing that to go forward now with staff not having any input on this now. I can appreciate that in the application you quote Mr. Ellis's assistant where she reports that she spoke with the minister's office and they feel there may be some leniency if the strong applications received. And I know that Ms. Hines and Karen Post will work together to make sure that, with Brandon, to make sure that application is strong and put in on time. But if the task team, which is the first time I've seen of this now, is part of the motion, then I'll have to rule it out of order and require a notice of motion, which unfortunately would mean that the item wouldn't be able to be considered until the March meeting. So are you okay with going with 1 and 3?
Yes, except that the application will need to have those partners. So I guess in lieu of that, what we can ask is those organizations from the City of Belleville support and probably that they put forth members that would be part of this application. So if that was what we're striking and what we're putting in is a formal ask for interested parties that want to be part of this application, then I would be agreeing with that.
Well, what I would just suggest is that the way the wording is now, it's a must and it shall be done immediately. So, you know, I think that staff will work to do that, but leave them some flexibility to be able to do it how they best can before that time. Because again, it's difficult for you know, I'm not sure who we could ask, Ms. Hines, you know, to do it, but she hasn't had a chance to speak with her colleagues and with those other organizations. So if the motion is with those, if 1 and 3, I'm willing to put it forth if I get a seconder for it, to put it forth, seconded by Councillor Culhane. So we have the recommendation for items 1 and items 3. Again, colleagues, this is committing for applying for some funding. It's not requiring us to, other than staff time, it's not an expenditure of our funds. Any debate on this? Councillor Sandison.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if Councillor Williams agreed to remove number 2.
Well, I think what I wanted to just rework that if there's a letter of support coming from your worship, then there's a letter of support coming from those organizations. I think the application will only go through if it's supported by a community effort on this. And I can state that probably the inclusion of Quinte Home Builders Association is the strongest member, because from the brief that we submitted that has 40 members, the Quinte Home Builders Association represents a significant more of those members, and part of the initial discussion with them, and this is, this is all preliminary. When you're bringing this, and again, I'm hearing this at Aroma, where it was a council, I think that night we were meeting with the ministers, and you're bringing this back and being told that this is an opportunity, which we recognized, in the brief committee, which is yet to meet, which I'm on, and Councillor Culhane and McCarr are on by Friday. This is something that we have to work quickly on. So to my point in that, I've had to do a significant amount of work just to get through to this point, which is procedure. But I would ask that at least we consider sending or asking for support letters from those organizations, if I'm out of order, by asking that we have those organizations sit on a table to do a co-application. So if that's the case, and that's how this council feels, I'm fine with those organizations providing support letters in that if this goes through and there's money that's provided, that we're working as a team on that.
Well, I think certainly the support letter, we can request that. The challenge I have with striking a task team, which is basically a committee. All of our committees have terms of references. All of our committees have mandates, and it's very clearly set out. We're not in the habit of striking a committee just for something that may or may not happen. So I think, and I appreciate the question from Councillor Sandison, because if we are being asked to strike a task team now without any terms of reference, these things happen and it comes back to council for consideration. We're able to ensure that we follow our procedures. But I'm sensing from you that 1 and 3 is good. We will, of course, ask for letters of support as part of the application. Ms. Hines is here nodding her head in agreement, so that's good. And then we will see what comes as a result of the application. If it's successful and we have this funding, well then, at that point, I'm hoping that staff will bring forth recommendations for committee structure, mandate, terms of reference, all those items. Councillor Culhane.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is the point where age and caution conflict with youth and enthusiasm. I was at Roma. I listened to the report. I read the information. I was turned away by the fact, to be eligible to participate, your community must have a population of 50,000 people or less and be located at least 75 kilometers from the core of a census metropolitan area. I read that to mean that we would not be eligible. Mr. Williams obviously has put a great deal of time and effort into it. I did not realize that I was the only person in possession of the information that he was bringing forward, and I'm sure that's just an oversight. I agree with you, it's an opportunity, but I see some issues creeping through that opportunity. If we're going to bring existing, or if it's your concept, that we're going to bring existing skilled tradespeople from Quebec, where are we going to put them? We don't have anywhere to put them. That's my first question.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're on debate now, so Councillor Millette, you're next.
Yes, through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Williams, just a quick question on this. Have you discussed any of this, Ryan, with Quinte Home Builders, any of the others? Have they indicated they're on board with it? I don't, for 1 minute.
So just a second, we're on debate, so Councillor Millette, if you can just go through your items, then I can ask Councillor Williams for a response,
yes, okay.
If you just go through them.
Yep. All right. Secondly, that's it. Let's just go with that.
Thank you. Councillor Williams, would you like to reply?
Yes, thank you, and through the chair to Councillor Millette.
We're in committee of the whole now as well, so.
Sorry, say that again?
We're in committee of the
Oh,
whole
sorry.
now as well. Thank you.
So I did speak
I'm sorry,
to Ruth Asvik, who's the Executive Director for Quinte Home Builders. Again, when you're doing this, and I apologize for not getting information to all councillors, I was told, excuse me, in the beginning that if we're giving, and sitting with every councillor and getting information, it qualifies as a quorum, so maybe I misunderstood that. But when I spoke to Quinte Home Builders, number one, they were more than happy to get involved with this. In my past life before council, I spent 4 years with the Bay Quinte Living Council before it was amalgamated with Bay Quinte Regional Marketing Board, so this was something that I know near and dear to my heart that we've been dealing with as a problem for 5 years. And further to that, as we state with the BRE, it's not just a coincidence on the report. It has been something we've had a problem with in this region for 10 years, that we have not had skilled labor. So again, this is not again protocol where it was a program that we can have all the time in the world to apply for. This is what I'm bringing as an opportunity, and I've of course put my neck out as a councillor to put all the time and effort and research as I can before coming to this group formally. I feel this is the best procedural method I could do. I'll speak on my second motion to how we're going to fix that. So.
All right. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much. In this instance, and I'm asking for protocol or how this react, could we not proceed with all three in and ask that the technical terms of the committee be submitted at a later date, like the mandate and the terms of reference? Can that be done at a later date? Because, you know, we all know the skilled trades is definitely a concern in this community, and Councillor Culhane brought up a good point where we're going to put them, but the tradespeople are looking for tradespeople. It's as simple as that. I'm trying to do some work in my house, and I'm having a hard time getting tradespeople to come and do a couple of small jobs. So I'm wondering if we can do those terms of reference and later on and still approve this.
I think that's what the motion is allowing us to do, Councillor Thompson. The original motion required us to do so, which meant that we had to set up this task team without those terms of reference and whatnot. So if this application is successful, well then that information will come back to City Council, and then perhaps we would have terms of reference at that point. If it's unsuccessful in terms of the funding request this time, we can always look at a future skilled trade immigration task force. But you know, you were on the last council, and you remember some of the new committees that were struck. You know, that was a deliberate process which had some time, and it wasn't a surprise. I understand that there's some urgency on this because March 1st is the deadline, and this information was just found out after the last council meeting. So this is the only one that can be dealt with before March 1st, and that's why I'm suggesting we allow it to proceed this way. But you know, again, I'm reluctant to establish a committee or a task force or any of those things until we have the recommendation come back from staff with the terms of reference, with the committee makeup, how the decisions are being made, and what type of capacity that organization operates in. Anyone else on debate on the motion? Councillor McCaw.
Thank you, through you. One of my questions, I believe, was answered that Councillor Millette had asked, had the home builders been, if we talk to the home builders, it's my understanding and my experience, do we even have enough land in our OP boundary at this point in time to accommodate such a mass construction of homes? I mean, that's certainly something that we've talked about. It poses a problem. Also, again, as Councillor Culhane states, we have nowhere to put these people. We have foreign students here that have no place to live. So to bring in 200 or 300 people, I just have no idea where we could put them. Those are the concerns, coupled with the fact that I like to be able to read a report before making a decision, and this is going to take, at least a half an hour or so, maybe longer, to digest and go through it. So that's sort of my feeling on it. At this point in time, again, if we need the skilled workers, I understand we're going to need them. I don't know how long this grant will apply. If we have issues with an OP boundary where we're not going to have enough land to build this mass amount of homes, then that's another issue in itself.
All right, thank you. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Mayor Panchuk. We should never quash enthusiasm.
No, absolutely.
If we're going to grow as a community, that's exactly what we need. and I appreciate the fact that you've relaxed the rules a little bit. We also send council's members go on conferences for a reason, and that is to learn about innovative ways in which to operate our government here locally and grow our community, and that's exactly what I hear has been done. And so with this, we have an opportunity, we have a tight time frame. We apply for funding all the time, and sometimes we're fortunate where we get that funding from senior levels of government, and there's other times we don't. But if we don't try, we'll never be in that game. And the reality is skilled trades has been a gap that's been discussed forever and a day in this community. And if we're going to idly stand by and say these are the reasons why we shouldn't do it, because we don't know where to put people, we don't have enough jobs for them, that's not true. We have the jobs. We hear it all the time. So the reality is we've got to try. And I think if we're going to move forward and grow this community in a positive way, we got to look at innovative ways. So I commend Councillor Williams for bringing this forward, and I appreciate the fact that he's got some flexibility in order to amend his motion. But I think it's a great motion and a great opportunity here to ask for some money and to help start to solve a very deep-seated problem we have in our community, and that is to have skilled labor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to comment on Councillor Williams. I was in Toronto with them at the Rona Convention Conference, and I saw him speaking with the ministers, and I know he had a conversation with MPP Todd Smith that night, and that's all Councillor Williams was talking about, because he met with the federal government earlier in the day, and he's brought this forward tonight. And obviously he's done his homework speaking to some of the folks that are involved with development in homes. I just sense it's the urgency here, and hopefully we'll support sections 1 and 3 in his motion, and we can get this off by March 1st and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Right, well, you know, certainly I'm going to support the motion now. I concur with everybody. I appreciate Councillor Williams going to this work and getting this here. If the ministry is willing to relax the requirements to allow a community like Belleville and the region to apply, I think that's a great idea. We have many issues and many challenges in our community. Skilled trades is one of them. We also have all those other items that have been dealt with. But, you know, we can't stop doing everything just because we have other areas. We have a housing summit that is going to be occurring in March. We are taking action with other employers that are coming here. These are all good news stories that present challenges, but also present opportunities. So the resolution that we have here allows us to proceed, apply for this funding. If we're successful, then great. Then we will look at setting up this the task team on skilled trade immigration, so that it can operate best for the region. And if we are unsuccessful, then it's a learning experience by going through the process. Our staff will have understood the forms, and we can continue to work going forward. And it gives us more ammunition as we deal with our federal and provincial governments talking about the fact that Belleville needs funding. So the motion is on the floor. It's items 1 and 3 from the handout. The clerk assures me that he's got it clear. I will call the question. Councillor Thompson, you have something new to add to this?
No, I just wanted clarification.
We're in the regular council meeting, so thank you.
Yeah, just clarification. We're taking out number 2, but is Councillor Williams allowed to get the letters from Quinte Home Builders and UIS and the Quinte Marketing Board and any other ones involved without setting up that
yes,
team?
Ms. Hines and her team will have those. We'll send out requests for those letters to go with the application.
Okay.
Councillor Carr.
I just request a recorded vote, please.
Recorded vote. Okay. So recorded vote has been requested. I'll let the clerk call it when he is ready. Excuse me.
Councillor McCaw,
This time, yes.
Councillor Sanderson,
Yes.
Councillor Thompson,
Yes.
Councillor Williams,
Yes.
Councillor Carr,
Yes.
Councillor Culhane,
Just as a vote, yes or no, Councillor Culhane?
Councillor Kelly,
Yes.
Councillor Millet,
Yes.
Mayor Panchuk,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Anyone else for new business? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, sir. I just had one more, so you'll love this one. So, this one is to fix the problems we just had, right? So I ran on a platform, Innovate Belleville, to look at new ways in which we can spark new economic development in the city and make sure that we are generating more revenue to alleviate the burden of our existing tax base, so that taxes stay constant and we can pay for the things we want to do, let alone the things we need to do. That means thinking like a city of 65,000, not 50,000. This means creating a committee that looks strategically at the future of Belleville and how we are generating revenue, paying for growth for the long term. As a councillor in my short term, I brought through 2 projects to new business because we don't have a committee in which I can properly debate and talk about the issues, so we don't come here and have surprises. I brought up the pop-up project, and then today, of course, the World Trade immigration application. This is what an economic development committee would have been able to vet and should have been able to vet so that we have proper discussion and we can bring it to council. I've had to bring and so what I asked for, and staff or councillors all got a copy of in advance, was on January 31st, Karen Post had sent a list that I asked for with just priorities for the economic development and strategic initiatives and, of course, the department wish list. The committee is needed now and not could be more pertinent both in scope and strategically. Our economic development department does not currently have a strategy for growth. It is severely underfunded. For instance, we have not even identified on short-term initiatives a strategy for building more homes in the city, and if we want to get to a city of 65,000 people, it would take right now 37.6 years given the rate in which we're building homes. And that's not even getting the people here to start building them. The BRE report on construction and development, as I've already mentioned, released a few weeks ago, showed the problem in skilled labor and trade, but also did a decade ago. The city have known about the problems for the last 10 years. Through the BRE committee, hasn't had the mechanisms in place to solve the problems. This committee will ensure that we do, that our strategies are both short and long term, and that will include all items that support our economic development department. Every year we spend an average of $37 per person on garbage. We spend an average of $38 per person on recycling. We spend $5 per person on economic development. In short, we spend more money on garbage than we do on finding ways to generate effective ways to pay for the things we need. 500 extra homes, for instance, if we could build it, would generate $2.7 million more dollars that would go into our budget per year. More money for things that we need, like pre-budget or anything else we're doing. Our citizens cannot afford for us not to be diligently working on new revenue streams. We cannot keep downloading all of our costs onto them. When it comes to an economic development strategy, as has been supported by Director Karen Post, it has to be undertaken by a committee of council, and it has to be long-term. Our citizens lose if we only have a short-term vision and not a long-term vision in mind, as has been the case this far with economic development in the city of Belleville. That are issues that will require an economic development committee's use immediately to create a diversified economy besides manufacturing and manufacturing retention, which is currently handled by QEDC. Ms. Post has provided a list this week, as I've asked for. In my perspective, the list looks great, and I would add a couple items, including innovation and startup community, skilled labor shortages and strategies, business growth and acceleration, forecasting revenue and growth with housing, skilled trade shortages, and revenue from housing and commercial development, investment attraction, economic zone development in Belleville, whether that's our waterfront or downtown or Bell Boulevard, loyalist and secondary educational partnerships, the small business center, and immigration. The city I look to for a model, it's nice to look at that, is Kelowna, BC. Kelowna, with a diversified focus on economic development alongside Accelerate Okanagan, has resulted in the creation of 633 tech businesses employing 7,600 people with an average income of $55,000, contributing $1.3 billion to their local economy. 52% of those tech workers are under the age of 35. Since this is a committee of council, I would like to make a motion, I'll make that in a second, with a suggestion that we have three, and I've passed out the terms of reference, 3 members of council, 5 citizens appointee, and 1 member from the Belleville Chamber of Commerce. And the Belleville Chamber of Commerce is really important to have on this committee in my mind, because that chamber represents the majority of business, can give feedback in the temperature of business, and provide surveys to business at any time that goes to the committee for ample discussion. I think that's very important. When making policy, no one knows entrepreneurship like the entrepreneur. So I'm making a motion to create a new economic development committee to be struck with the mandate and terms provided, and the seats to be approved at our next council meeting. This is to go to the clerk, but through the chair.
Thank you, Councillor Williams, and we're under new business right now. Notice of motions is number 12, and I suggest that's the appropriate place to put it in. I certainly appreciate your enthusiasm, and that's why I let you go through the presentation. But this is not a new business item at this point. It would be a notice of motion. We'll introduce it, which means that at the meeting in March is when it'll be under discussion and debate, and we'll vote on it.
So just want to check with the clerk on that, because I did check on that prior to this. I think the motion is to have the committee approved at next meeting, but the motion was to have a call out for public members that this committee be approved in principle.
Well, I'll certainly let the clerk add on, but we do not have a committee at this point, so we have to strike the committee. And that requires a notice of motion to give council time to consider it and to be able to debate it at the next meeting, which is what I did, for example, at the last meeting regarding changes to procedural bylaw. I gave council notice so that they were able to look at it over the weekend and whatnot. So I'll let the clerk add on, but this is appropriate for item number 12. We will be able to come and have the discussion and the decision at, I believe is it March 6th, the first meeting that we have in March? March 11th. It'll be at the March 11th meeting, which is the next meeting, and we'll deal with that. Mr. Clerk, do you have anything? Am I incorrect on any of that?
No, to the chair, you're correct in the process. I think the concern of Councillor Williams was the time it would take to from approval to recruitment of community members to committee beginning work. You'd end up from March, you'd be April, you'd be May before committee probably first met was the point he was making. But procedurally, you're correct.
Yeah. Well, you know, and I certainly understand the urgency we want to get going. If council approves the establishment of the committee, that's what the meeting on March 11th will do. I'll just accept it now under item 12, but is there anyone else that has any new business? Councillor Standison.
So thank you, Chair. I'd like to talk about public transit. So public transit has received a lot of positive news recently, especially with the on-demand service and the ridership. And it's also an issue that I campaigned on, and I look forward to the expansion of services into Ward 2 Thurlow. While residents in Ward 1 Belleville pay an additional levy for public transit, Ward 2 residents also fund public transit. They fund public transit, and here is how Ward 2 residents fund public transit. Each year, the City of Belleville receives a provincial gas tax fund, and it's driven on a per capita basis. Since 2014, the city has received $3.4 million in provincial gas tax money, and in 2017, the city received a one-time federal public transportation and infrastructure amount of $1.5 million, for a total of just under $5 million when you combine both. And this was all invested over those 5 years in public transit. Based on a population split of roughly 75-25 between the two wards, roughly 3.75 million of that 5 was derived from Ward 1, and the other 1.25 million was derived from Ward 2. So in all practical terms, Ward 2 residents are paying for public transit. And the point here is not to be critical, but to make the case for fairness, inclusion, balance, and reasonableness when we look at the needs of our city. And funding models aside, we need to develop a cost-effective public transit solution that spans across Point Anne towards Tyendinaga and north to and beyond Highway 401. We are not scheduled to have our first Transit Advisory Committee meeting until next week. And I've actually opened up dialogue with representatives of Deserano Transit and met with them recently to explore the potential for them to provide service to Ward 2 Thurlow. No commitments were made, but Jenny Johnson, who's the administrator of Deserano Transit, has expressed an interest in continuing that dialogue. So Deserano Transit currently provides service to Prince Edward County, Quinte West, and they do drop-offs in Belleville. They can't do pickups. So I would like to ask staff to bring back a report to council that explores this possibility of utilizing Deserano Transit, along with the development of other options to provide service to Ward 2 Thurlow for the March 11th council meeting in advance of the operating budget meetings, which are scheduled in the first week in April.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Anyone else for new business items? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I just, 1 second, and thank you, Councillor Sanderson, for raising that. Tomorrow evening is a regional transit forum at Loyalist College. It's a public meeting that many of us are going to be attending after our budget deliberation, so it's an excellent and timely point. Sorry for the interruption, Councillor Thompson.
You're welcome. I would like the clerk to bring back a report at our March meeting. A number of months ago, there was an investigation put forward on meetings of a group of people at a breakfast place. That investigation has been ongoing. No report has been brought back at this point. We've gone on now for 6 or 8 months on that, and I would like to have a full report back for our March meeting on the outcome of that particular investigation, so it can be all settled and done away with, and it's not hanging over our head any more than it is right now. So,
okay, thank you. Anyone else for new business? All right, number 11, motions. So at the last meeting, I provided notice of motion that the city clerk be directed to prepare the necessary bylaw for presentation and consideration of City Council to amend the city's procedural bylaw, number 2007-194, being a bylaw to provide rules governing the calling, place, and proceedings of meetings of the City of Belleville Council and the conduct of its members. So it's moved by me. I need a seconder to get it on the floor. Seconded by Councillor Culhane. So, colleagues, and you received an electronic version by email from the clerk, and then today you have a colored copy on your desks in terms of the procedural bylaw. The bylaw has been tinkered with since 2007, and so what we're proposing is some changes to modernize it. With your consent, what I would suggest we do is deal with the 4 main changes that are being proposed. We can deal with them one at a time, and we can have a separate vote on each one of them, and then we'll deal with the amended motion at the end. So if that's okay, the first section is that section 4.21 4 of the city's procedural bylaw, number 2007-194, being a bylaw to provide rules governing the calling, place, and proceedings of meetings of the City of Belleville Council and conduct of its members be amended to delete the restriction on members communicating with any other person electronically. Can I get this on the floor? Moved by Councillor Kelly, second by Councillor Carr. Some discussion, if I can just lead out. This bylaw, we have seen the advent of cell phones to not just be communication devices, but also now to be smartphones. They have, many of us are looking up information. Technically, we're all in violation of the procedural bylaw when we're doing it. So this is a kind of a housekeeping matter to clear it up. Any other discussion on it? I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Number 2, the proceeding I just read before, but added to say that it be amended to permit member who makes a motion to speak on the motion first and reply immediately prior to the calling of the vote. Moved by Councillor Millet, seconded by Councillor Sanderson. And again, just to be clear, this has been the practice that I have been using, but it is not procedurally there. The person who makes the motion should be able to speak first to explain what their motion is and why they believe it should be supported. And then when everyone else has an opportunity to go through and debate it, the person whose motion should have the ability to speak last to summarize and explain and deal with those issues. It'll make everything move more efficient. Anyone else want to speak on this? I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. The third area is that the procedure bylaw be amended to change the time that council meetings commence from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. I will get this on the floor. Moved by Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Councillor Millet. This is a change to the start time, a proposal to change the start time from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. If we do approve this amendment, then we'll also have to amend section 7.15, which is time of adjournment, because currently right now we have a hard stop time at 8 p.m., which would have to change by an hour as well. Discussion. Councillor McCaw.
Thank you, through you. I just wonder, looking at this, we've really had no consultation with the public about this, and I'm wondering, in the same format that we had a survey put together about the cannabis and some other things, maybe perhaps we should put this to the public. Sorry. Maybe we should put this to the public for consultation. I just want to make sure we're doing this for the right reasons. I want to make sure it's convenient. With the live feed now that we have with the streaming and Cogeco, quite certainly, it might not be necessary. And I think that public consultation by way of a survey on our website might be the way to go. I just want to make sure we're doing it for the right reasons for the public and no other reason.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much. I am not going to support the change from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock. I think we all take notice of the number of people that is in our gallery, especially tonight. Our gallery was full, and we've had them at full at other times. So to accommodate the public, I'm not sure we're doing it to accommodate the public. If we stay at 4 o'clock, we seem to get good attendance. The other matter is senior staff are here. That means an extra hour for them. Granted, senior staff, directors, are not paid by the hour, but keeping them late, they have other duties to do, so I'm not going to support motion. Matter of fact, Councillor McCaw has brought up one point. Maybe we should go for it for a public input, but I'm not going to support changing it from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock.
Thank you. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Mayor Panchuk. Anytime the time of council comes up, the eyes, at least I feel that way, always turn to those that have jobs, and therefore it's to create an opportunity to have access to attend meetings. So I'm going to put this out very clearly. I've been on council for the past 4 years. I've missed one council meeting in that 4 years, and that was due to a death in the family. Aside from that, how I get here in terms is all rearranged before I file my paperwork. So this discussion is not premised on my convenience whatsoever, and that has to be very clear. I'm going to run through some statistics, if you will, or some information. City of Pickering, 7 p.m. Ajax, 7 p.m. Whitby, 7 p.m. Oshawa, 6:30. Oshawa actually has a set closed meeting time of 3:30. Peterborough, 6 p.m. Brighton, 6:30. Cooney West, 6:30. Prince Edward County, 7 p.m. Greater Napanee, 7 p.m. Kingston, 7:30. Brockville, 7 p.m. Cornwall, 7 p.m. So from the GTA border to Eastern Ontario, every municipality is having their council meetings in the evening, including large centres. But aside from that, City of Milton, one of the fastest growing communities in Ontario, has council at 7 p.m. Guelph, 6:30. Richmond Hill, 7:30. Brantford, 6 p.m. St. Catharines, 6:30. Windsor, 6. Barrie, 7 p.m. So you get the sense that those meetings are held for a reason. We have our Planning Advisory Committee meetings at 5:30. We have that for a reason. whether you want to speak at the podium or you want to sit in the gallery in support of a particular issue. It's always about making it accessible to the people we serve. And we have created streaming, and certainly, Mayor Penchuk, I commend you for bringing that forward last term, and that has served us well. And for the casual observer who wants to go to see a particular issue or watch council while they're having dinner, that option is available. However, I know standing in this place that there are times when a burning issue comes to council's attention and that gallery gets full. And that hasn't happened yet to the degree that it can, but it will. And that is the way democracy should be working. We should be hearing from the residents. And whether they speak at the podium or they show up in the public gallery, they're sending council a message as to how they view a particular issue. And I actually think that 5:30 is a better time. It parallels with planning. It allows any member of the public who works in a day job the ability from 9 to 5 to be able to get here, to touch that podium and to speak to their council. And I think that's reasonable. I think based on what I have just demonstrated in terms of other municipalities, this is the way it's conducted. If we're going to continue with modernizing our government and we're talking about being accessible to the people, and I'm not worried about the press because they can watch it online. The reality is that we have to be servicing the entire community. And so I think, and I'm going to put an amendment motion that 5:30, if I can get a seconder, I would certainly appreciate it. I think that that is a reasonable way in order to have full participation. We often talk about voter turnout. We talk about this at election time, and we say, why is voter turnout so low? Well, we need to create opportunities for citizen engagement, and this is one of them. The 4 p.m. start time has been in Belleville for years, but that is for an era that is gone, that is in the past, that served a council of a particular demographic. Those days are done. And so we have to be sure that we're accessible to the community, and we expect our community to go out and find jobs and work hard and contribute to our community. And then when the job is done and they want to face us as their elected officials, they have that opportunity to do so at a time of their convenience.
All right, thank you. Councillor Kelly. Sorry, let me just step back. So Councillor Carr, you're proposing an amendment to the amendment? Correct. So the amendment to the amendment is for 5:30 rather than 5 p.m. Moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Sandison. So we're discussing now the amendment to the amendment. Councillor Kelly.
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, after hearing Councillor Carr speak, I think he's almost convinced me. You know, it is a changed world, and Councillor Carr referred to it's not the old school anymore. We're living in 2019. Yes, we are, but people can reach us. I disagree with the comment that we're not accessible. We're all wired 24/7. This past weekend, Mr. Millett was on vacation in the Dominican Republic solving an issue with a resident from Belleville. Is he not accessible? Yes, he is 24/7, so that's one example. I could sit here all night and tell you many more. When I look at the gallery over the last 3 months, I see a lot of people here at 4 o'clock. And now as the deputations are given and people have had their chance to speak, the crowds get smaller, and I appreciate those coming and staying. And I think they have a human interest in what's happening in their city. I understand the 4 o'clock thing. For somebody that gets up at 4 a.m. Earlier, it's better. But I'm not selfish here. It is a team. There's no I in team. So I just don't know. And if you watch some of the other municipalities that Councillor Carr touched on, I see an empty room when I'm watching it at 7 and 7:30 at night. So I don't buy the argument that later is better. I've seen lots of engaged people here at 4 o'clock. We're accessible 24/7, and we're wired. They have a direct connection to us. So those are just my thoughts on it.
Right. Councillor Culhane.
Thank you, Your Worship. With respect, Councillor Carr, I'm from the era that you referred to. And in my day, we said things like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I haven't seen an issue in my prior 8 years on council, haven't heard an issue. Where I see an issue and hear an issue is on planning. And planning impacts more people directly, and they show up to complain. I suggest, I agree completely with Councillor Kelly. We are wired, we are accessible, we give out our numbers. Anyone can call me anytime, and I think that statement covers every single person at this table. Another thought that doesn't seem to be connected is for all of the other councils and the county, all of the times that are built around what we do and when we do it. A change like this would have an impact far beyond this table. I simply do not see the need for it.
Thank you. Councillor Millette.
Yeah, like as Councillor Kelly said, Councillor Carr almost convinced us that we should move to 5:30. I don't believe a half-hour increment is going to make a lot of difference. For the record, by the way, I was in Costa Rica, and, but that's okay. The food's better in Costa Rica than the Dominican. But no, I believe, and again, I hate this hoary old I remember when thing, but I do remember when this august body sat 2 floors down on the second floor of what was then the top floor of City Hall, and the council meetings then were at 3 p.m. You know, I'm not saying we're progressively moving along here, but 3 to 4, now to 5, I can't see that in the big scheme of things it's going to make a lot of difference if we go to 5:30. I can't support the amendment to the amendment, but I will support 5 p.m.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Just a couple of comments I'll just make before we vote on this amendment. You know, sometimes people, I think, get the impression that we start our day at 4 p.m. when we have a city council meeting. And in fact, we don't, and neither do staff. Many of us are working on some things earlier. I know Councillor Culhane was in this morning at 11 o'clock, meeting with the clerk to prepare for her chairing the committee of the whole. Her and I had a meeting at noon. Many other people have to make arrangements. And so, you know, for us, whether it's 5 o'clock or 4:30 or 4 p.m., the day starts much earlier. We today started at 1:30 for our closed session meeting, so we had some items we had to take care of. So we were all here at 1:30. So I want people to understand that obviously the day is there. Last term, I supported the move from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, and I did not support the move back to 4 o'clock as had been handled. But I can tell you that you know, there's nobody coming to me and suggesting that we need to change the time of the date, other than you know, I had a councillor who asked for this to be brought forward, which I did. Members of the public, I think, are getting access to the streaming. They're able to watch it anywhere. I had a situation where a truck driver was able to watch the meeting of City Council on their telephone while they were in New Jersey, having their vehicle unloaded while they're waiting for their trailer to get unloaded. So people can watch that on their devices. And certainly if they're not able to watch that when it's live, you can come back anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where you can watch it on the archives portion of it. And we are seeing more and more people making use of that feature, so they can see not just for themselves what happened, but also if it's not convenient for them, they're able to watch that. I think the valid issue that we should be considering is not for us, all of who understood what the times were when we ran, but for future members of council. And when we talk about the future city council after our term or in the future, what demographics do we want sitting around this table? And is it easier for example, parents with small children, such as Councillor Williams? You know, are they able to get off from work to get to their things and to be at council on time for a 4 o'clock or a 5 o'clock or a 5:30 meeting, for that matter, keeping in mind that sometimes it starts earlier? And I think that you know, judging anecdotally from what I see, when there is an issue that people want to come to, they do attend. They don't complain to me about the fact that they've had to come so early to be here for 4 o'clock for a deputation. But I do know that, you know, there are often times, particularly tomorrow and on Wednesday when we deal with budget, that the gallery will be empty. And while sure, we're talking about important things today and we had some deputations about future projects, tomorrow we're actually going to be dealing with the dollars and cents of the community, the nuts and bolts about how we move around roads, where we're putting our ideas. And people, the gallery will be, there'll be a few people, but there won't be very many. And I don't think that that's an issue of what the time is. If we had a capital budget meeting starting at 7 p.m., we would still probably have the same turnout because people aren't interested. Some of the communities who do have late meetings, and they're in much larger centers, Pickering, for example, I can tell you as part of the dealing with Viridian, when they have their meetings, they are empty. So these are communities that are 150, 300,000 people, and their gallery is empty, and it's not because of the time of the meeting, it's because of whether or not people are engaged. I think we're quite fortunate in having a pretty engaged community, and for those people who find that being on City Council would be a deterrent from them being able to serve because of their family situations, well, that's always the purview of the next council. The next council can set the time for their meetings to be there. So that all being said, I wanted to just give that background. That being said, I won't be supporting changing the starting times of our meetings for all those reasons, but we will be able to vote on it. Currently, we have the amendment to the amendment. So the amendment to change the start time from 5 p.m. to 5:30. That's on the floor. So I'll call the question. All in favor?
Recorded vote, please.
Okay. Recorded vote. So this is for the 5:30 time. Go ahead.
Councillor Sanderson?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
No.
Councillor Williams?
Yes.
Councillor Carr?
Yes.
Councillor Culhane?
No.
Councillor Kelly?
No.
Councillor Millet?
No.
Councillor McCaw?
No.
Mayor Panchuk?
No. So the go ahead.
Motion fails.
So the amendment to the amendment is failed. So we're back to the change from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Any further discussion on this? Councillor Culhane.
Thank you, Your Worship. With respect, may I move all my commentary to the first part of the amendment?
Yes.
Thank you.
So what she said before, she said it again.
I just said it again.
Anyone else?
I have a recorded vote, please.
Okay, Councillor Thompson's asking for a recorded vote on the 5 o'clock. Anyone else? For discussion? No? So we'll call the vote again, Mr. Clerk.
Councillor Thompson?
No.
Councillor Williams?
Yes.
Councillor Carr?
Yes.
Councillor Culhane?
No.
Councillor Kelly?
No.
Councillor Millet?
Yes.
Councillor McCaw?
No.
Councillor Sanderson?
Yes.
Mayor Panchuk?
No.
Motion fails.
All right. So the next item is dealing with the Singing of Canada. So the amendment, the procedural bylaw will be amended as required, be amended to require the Singing of Canada at the inaugural meeting and other meetings as may be determined by the mayor. I'll get this on the floor. Moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Thompson. And just a brief explanation for those that are following. Currently, the procedural bylaw states a number of times during the year in which O Canada shall be sang, particularly in around certain dates. So, but sometimes council doesn't meet around those dates, and I think that we should deal with it at the inaugural meeting, and then the meeting that I'm suggesting that it be determined by myself, but certainly Canada Day, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to have it at the beginning of the year or other dates, unless there's something special that we want to have it and we can make those arrangements. And I think at those times we would also maybe bring in somebody who can lead us appropriately in singing it, as we did for the inaugural meeting. Any other discussion on this? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. And then the last one, especially before we get into anything else that people want to bring up, is that be amended to limit the number of persons appearing as a deputation at a regular council meeting to no more than 3. Move that to get on the floor. Moved by Councillor McCaw, seconded by Councillor Sandison. And again, just right now we have an unlimited amount of delegation opportunities, and it makes it difficult for the clerk to try to direct people. And so what ends up happening is it's not until the Wednesday prior to the council meeting that a decision can be made, and it's made by me as we set the agenda. And I don't think that's enough time to give people an opportunity to plan. Having this in place allows the clerk to say to people that, you know, the January 11th meeting is looking really heavy, but the 28th looks better, and we suggest you do it sort of positioning. This doesn't preclude us from adding an emergency deputation if we need a fourth one, but it just gives the clerk some direction in terms of how to deal with members of the public who are requesting deputations. Anyone else want to speak on this? Councillor Thompson?
Just clarification, I think you answered it. So if somebody wanted to speak that wasn't on a deputation that the councillors brought forward, would be able to come from the gallery, even though there's 3 already?
Yes, and we can make that decision at that time. We can always waive our rules and try to deal with it, but it's just, this is going to allow the clerk more ability to help plan the meetings in advance, so that doesn't happen before that happens. Okay, anyone else? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Anyone else have any other items in the procedural bylaw that they wanted to see that aren't included in here? The rest are in, they're colored by the clerk as he sent out, that are basically housekeeping. So those are items that were just inconsistent or against the spirit and the intent of them. If no one has anything specially, then I will just add at the end of the original motion that was introduced by myself and seconded by Mr. Clerk? Seconded by Councillor Culhane, that we say as amended to allow for these changes. So I see that she's in agreement. Any further debate? All in favor? It's carried. So what will happen, my colleagues, is that the clerk will bring a clean version of everything to be presented at the next council meeting. So it'll basically a restart. It'll be a 2019 dated bylaw, and then away we go. Item number 11, notice of motion. So Councillor Williams has made a notice of motion regarding the establishment of the Belleville Economic Development Committee, and that is being received, and it'll be on the agenda for the next meeting. Any other notice of motions? All right, announcements. There is going to be a number, and I have some today, but let's start with those folks. I'll start on this side of the table today. Councillor Sandison.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a reminder that next month we're going to have the Ward 2 Town Hall meetings. That's Tuesday, March 26th at the Jerry Masterson Center, and Thursday, March 28th at the Fire Hall on Old Highway 2, and both sessions start at 6:30.
Thank you very much. Anyone else on that side? On the other side, Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Mayor Panchuk. Back a while ago, there was a Connect Innovate announcement that was made, and I was talking with MP Mike Bossio actually just on Friday night, and so there's lots of details about rural broadband internet, and certainly that there is through Connect Innovate and ExploreNet a plan to bring high-speed rural internet through our area. And so, but one thing that was missing when you look online was the timeline. And I'm, of course, getting a lot of residents that are asking about that. So according to MP Bossio, there's going to be groundbreaking this spring. The total project will be 24 months in length. Some of the systems should be online later this summer in 2019, but the majority will be on by 2020. And then there's talk of more actual completion in 2021. There's been additional federal funding included. So that's certainly a good news story, and I know residents in Ward 2, and I'm sure my colleague Councillor Sanderson hears the same thing of when can we get that, so it's good to hear that news. I also do know that Bell is in the process of running fiber down River Road, which again is another exciting opportunity in order to expand rural broadband for homeowners, but also for rural business. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Okay, so I have a number of them. So first of all, I'd like to just report to Council that I've had a number of events that I've attended since the last Council meeting, including starting with the Eastern Ontario Mayor's Caucus delegation to the Roma Conference. Councillors Kelly, Williams, and Culhane attended the full conference. I came in on the Tuesday for Eastern Ontario Mayor's Conference caucus meeting with the Minister of Transportation and the Minister of Municipal Affairs. You know, certainly there's no surprise. They didn't make any commitments to us, but they did hear our delegation regarding 401 safety, as well as innovation and more jobs for Eastern Ontario. There was also the Chamber of Commerce breakfast, which had the introduction of the new board members for 2019. I attended with Mayor Harrison the International Students Welcome at Loyalist College, welcoming all the international students that are attending there. We have a lot of them, and Mayor Harrison and I participated in the how to tie a turban demonstration. So Mayor Harrison and I both wore turbans for the very first time, which was quite interesting. I had the pleasure of attending the Operation Red Nose volunteer banquet along with Councillor Thompson, and I really just want to pay tribute to the outgoing chairs of that, Orlena Kane and our own very own Councillor Sean Kelly, who did a great job this year raising so much needed funds for great organizations, but also helping to keep our streets safe, and we certainly appreciate them and that great organization that year after year does such a great job. A new business opening in downtown, Artworks, which is a artistic studio for dance and other types of art. I helped present the check for the Feed the Meter campaign this year. We raised over $15,000 in Belleville alone, which is by and large the largest community that has raised funds for that special event. Children cannot learn when they are hungry, and so this helps to provide them with something to eat so that they're able to be receptive to all the information they're getting. I believe it was February the 4th, I attended the Rotary luncheon where Director Fleur, along with folks from the Rotary Club and the Belleville Centers Foundation, talked about the outdoor rink presentation and how that is moving along. I also attended a fire department historical evening last week with the chief, and I'm not sure if you were going to talk about this, Chief, but I just want to say we had a family of firefighters who donated historic artifacts, including leather, helmets that were used such a long time ago. And, you know, the connection with the fire department and families that have served over the years is so important. And it was so nice to see that they were concerned about the future safety and security of these devices. They wanted to donate them to our own Glanmore House, to be able to preserve them going forward. And there was a really nice ceremony at the fire station number 1, and the chief and Carson Cross did an excellent job with that, and I was happy to be there representing everyone. Last Friday, I had the pleasure of attending, along with Councillors Thompson, McCaw, Culhane, and Carr, the Chamber of Commerce President's Dinner. And at this dinner, I presented Suzanne Hunt, the past president of the Belleville Chamber of Commerce, with a key to the city. And the key to the city of Belleville is given to those exceptional individuals that have committed themselves to the betterment of our community. It recognizes those leaders that have risen to the pinnacle of their organization and had a positive and prolonged impact on their business community and the city itself. The Chamber President has not only served their community well in their volunteer position on the Board of Directors, but they have established and grown their own business in the community, generating prosperity, jobs, and investment in this region. To succeed in business, while at the same time committing a considerable amount of their time and effort to supporting other businesses and the community at large, is worthy of one of the highest honors our city can give. And with sincere appreciation and admiration, I was happy to present the key to the city of Belleville as a token of our immense appreciation for all that Ms. Hunt has contributed to Belleville. And she, her journey as working through the board and president is a 9-year journey. And that's not uncommon for other past presidents. And so I think everyone gets on to the Chamber of Commerce board, sort of seeing how it goes, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, it's been 9 years, and you're the past president on the way out. So it's a big deal for our city and the 155 years the Chamber's been in operation, and I was very happy to present my first key to the outgoing president of the Chamber of Commerce. At the last meeting, we had some discussion regarding the future of homeless people in Belleville, particularly during cold winter months. At the meeting on January 27th, we referred the item to social services. And since then, we've had a number of people that have contacted us saying that we could not wait any longer. On January 31st, I met with community groups. Councillor McCaw was present, where we met with about 10 different representatives from community groups, talking about what steps we could do to provide a warming type of center for residents in Belleville for the rest of this winter. We determined that we needed to provide some overnight accommodation, in spite of the fact that Hastings County and the Canadian Mental Health Association provides our current overnight services and does so very, very well. On February the 1st, we had sort of moved things along that the preferred location for a warming center would have been the Salvation Army, as they are already providing some daytime service up until 11 p.m., and Hastings County already has a contractual relationship. And we worked on it. We worked on it over the weekend. We worked on it on Monday, the 4th of February. On the 4th of February, we had a grant committee meeting where I presented the resolution for the $50,000 of social infrastructure funding, which we voted on today as a recommendation, so that we could at least move forward with a Salvation Army or another service provider. On the 5th of February, dealing with the Salvation Army and with Hastings County, it was determined that the contractual requirements to provide a facility like this were such that they would not be available before the beginning of April, and that was not a solution. So I want to thank Trevor Pross, the CEO of the Belleville Library. It was suggested by Hastings County that we use that as a warming facility. Mr. Pross immediately said that they would be willing to do it. I also then went on a ride along that day with Belleville Police Services to see for myself areas in the city where people are staying outside overnight. And then on February the 7th, members of the Social Services Committee from Hastings County and City Council met with the Grayson Board. And we determined that we were proceeding with this. We asked if they would be willing to provide some volunteers to assist us with the time when this warming center would be activated, as well as trying to get a better understanding of when their facility would be open. And while no specific or concrete dates were given to us in terms of their facility being open this year, certainly we as a City Council will have to make some decisions much earlier next year. I'm suggesting June would probably be the time that we have to decide for next year. So with all that as background, I'm pleased on behalf of myself and members of council to announce that we will be having a warming room for the remainder of the winter during the extremely cold evenings at the library, Belleville Public Library, from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. The warming room will be a place for those who are the most vulnerable to come in from the extreme elements and have a warm place to stay overnight. The library will not provide cots or meals. The intention is to have a warm room available. The warming center will be activated when temperatures that have been set by the Belleville Weather Network are around the threshold of minus 15 degrees Celsius, or have a wind chill of minus 20 degrees, or trending in that direction. And while tonight may see those numbers, we are anticipating that the warming center will be first activated tomorrow evening. In the event that we have this warming center, the fire chief, as the chair of the Emergency Operations Control Group, will make the decision. It'll be operated, as I said, from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. We will have security in place for that facility for the overnight shift. And again, I just want to repeat that the overnight warming center will be a warming room only, a place for citizens in need to come in from the cold. It is not a shelter, and cots and meals will not be provided. The decision to activate, once it's made, the Emergency Operations Control Group Chair, the Fire Chief, will contact the CEO of the Belleville Public Library to inform them of the overnight warming center to be activated. They will contact security to, the CEO of the Public Library will contact security to provide the shift of 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. And then Ms. Marilyn Warren, our communications coordinator, will then issue a media release and promote this through appropriate media and social media channels. We will contact the Belleville Police Department to inform on-duty officers so that they can check through the overnight shift, and any people who need attention or need direction can be directed to this facility, and that the Director of Hastings County Social Services will also be informed about the fact that we're opening our overnight warming center, and they will also let Canadian Mental Health Services, who are now contracted by Hastings County, providing overnight assistance, to be able to use it. I have a release that I'm going to ask the clerk to pass out to members of council, which is a policy. This policy is just being put together a little bit on the fly, but it will be referred to the Emergency Management Control Group for them to review and then set as their policy going forward. I want to thank so many different people who have come together fairly quickly to deal with this. It's not just any facility that we can use. There are rules governing how we present them and how we staff them. I appreciate the amendment from Councillor Sanderson extending this to April the 10th. Is that the date that we had? I think that was a great idea. We had originally just thought that March 31st was sufficient, so that's there. We already have, I didn't want to jump to a conclusion, but we already have the sign that will be outside the Belleville Public Library, notifying the community that the warming center is open that evening. And I want to thank Sarah in my office. I want to thank Mr. Pross, and I also want to thank the fire chief for their cooperation, as well as all the community groups and social services that are interested in the well-meaning and the benefit of our members. With that, I will ask for a confirmatory bylaw, that bylaw number 2019-34, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on February 11, 2019, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 11th day of February 2019. Moved by Councillor... Okay. Moved by Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Councillor Thompson. All in favor? It's carried. Motion to... before we call a motion to adjourn, so tomorrow we are having a forecast for some heavy snow. And do we need to have a conversation regarding our capital budget tomorrow? And we're still going to go ahead with it. CEO Kester, I'll look for some direction from you.
Yeah, we are going ahead with our capital budget. So capital budget's at 9. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe Joe could help of when the storm is coming, but we have a number of delegations that we're gonna commence with, I believe, and a presentation from our deputy treasurer.
Okay. So we'll proceed with our schedule as planned, and then we'll have to take a look and maybe make an adjustment as we go through there. But right now, the intention is to proceed with capital tomorrow and Wednesday, starting at 9 a.m. All right. A motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor McCaw, seconded by Councillor Sanderson. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.